The quantum sensors aboard the Terran Defense Station Aegis lit up like a Christmas tree. Admiral Sarah Chen watched as the massive vessel emerged from fold space, its hull gleaming with an iridescent material unknown to human science. After decades of preparation, humanity's first contact with the Galactic Empire had finally arrived. Contact bearing 340 Mark II, announced Lieutenant Rodriguez from his sensor station. Size matches our long-range observations. It's a Drachnid Sovereign-class warship. Chen nodded calmly. For 15 years, humanity had intercepted and decoded the Empire's transmissions, learning their language, studying their technology, and most importantly, understanding their tactics. The Drachnids had conquered 17 species across their expansion, and they always followed the same pattern. They would arrive with a single warship, demand submission, and then demonstrate their supposed superiority through a show of force. But humanity had no intention of becoming the 18th conquered species. Their broadcasting, Admiral Rodriguez reported. Standard Imperial frequencies. Put it through, Chen ordered, straightening her uniform. A holographic image materialized on the bridge, showing a tall, reptilian figure adorned with ceremonial armor. Their scales shimmered with bioluminescent patterns that humans had learned indicated rank and status among their kind. Primitive species of Sol system. The Drachnid commander began, his translator converting his sibilant speech into English. I am Supreme Commander Vexthor of the Eternal Empire. Your world has been chosen for integration into our grand civilization. Submit now, and you shall serve as valued subjects. Resist, and face annihilation. Chen allowed herself a small smile. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Force. We've been expecting you, Supreme Commander. The slight widening of Vexthor's vertical pupils betrayed his surprise. You were expecting us. We've been monitoring your communications for the past 15 years, Chen replied. We know about the 17 species you've conquered. We know about your standardized conquest protocols. And we know about the fleet you have stationed 3 light-years away, waiting for your signal. The bridge of the Drachnid vessel fell silent. This was not how first contact usually went for them. Then you know resistance is futile. Vexthor recovered quickly. Our technology is centuries beyond yours. Our empire has stood for a millennium. Submit now, and spare your people unnecessary suffering. Chen's expression hardened. Supreme Commander, I'm going to tell you something that the last 17 species couldn't. Run. Laughter erupted from the Drachnid bridge crew. You dare threaten the Eternal Empire? Vexthor's bioluminescent patterns flashed with anger. This isn't a threat, Chen replied calmly. It's a warning. Humanity isn't like the others you've conquered. We didn't develop our technology through peaceful exploration. We developed it through necessity, through competition, through survival. She gestured to a subordinate, who transmitted a data packet to the Drachnid vessel. These are images from our history. We split the atom as a weapon before we used it for power. We went to space because of a military race. We developed quantum technology, not for commerce, but for defense. Your history means nothing, Vexthor dismissed. You will submit or you'll demonstrate your power. Chen interrupted. Target one of our primitive stations. Let me save you the trouble. She nodded to her weapons officer. Instantly, dozens of quantum signatures appeared around the Drachnid vessel. Hidden defense platforms, previously invisible to their sensors, decloaked. Those platforms, Chen explained, are armed with weapons reverse-engineered from studying your battles with other species. We know exactly how your shields work. We know their frequencies, their modulation patterns, their weaknesses. For the first time, uncertainty crept into Vexthor's expression. Impossible. You couldn't have. We did. And that's just what we're showing you. Leave our system, Supreme Commander. Tell your empire that Sol is off limits, because if you don't, you'll learn why we're warning you instead of begging. The Drachnid commander's scales flickered with rapid calculations. Their sensors confirmed the weapons platforms were real, and their energy signatures matched nothing in Imperial records. This primitive species had somehow developed technologies specifically designed to counter Imperial defenses. "You have 1 hour to leave the system," Chen concluded. "After that, we will consider your presence an act of war. And Supreme Commander, if you are thinking of calling in your waiting fleet, don't. What we're showing you now is a fraction of our capabilities. The next demonstration won't be so gentle." As the transmission ended, Lieutenant Rodriguez turned to Chen. "Think they'll listen, Admiral?" Chen watched the Drachnid vessel on the main screen, its crew undoubtedly in chaos as they processed this unprecedented situation. "No," she replied quietly. "They won't. Pride won't let them. But we gave them their chance." She opened a channel to Terra Command. "Begin Operation Prometheus. The Empire's about to learn why humanity warns its enemies to run." The quantum sensors continued their silent watch as the hour began to count down. Humanity had spent decades preparing for this moment, and while they hoped for peace, they were ready for war. The Empire was about to learn that sometimes a warning isn't a sign of weakness. It's a sign of absolute certainty in one's strength. Supreme Commander Vex Thor paced the command deck of his warship, bioluminescent patterns pulsing with rage and confusion. The data from their scans of the human defenses made no sense. Their technology seemed to be a patchwork of innovations, some primitive, others inexplicably advanced. It defied the Empire's understanding of technological progression. "Status report," he demanded. "My commander, we've detected energy signatures from their lunar bases," his science officer reported. "They appear to be using quantum entanglement on a massive scale. Our sensors can't penetrate their defensive screens." "Impossible," Vex Thor hissed. "No species develops quantum technology before mastering antimatter drives. It's not a natural progression." "Sir," his tactical officer interrupted, "the humans are moving. Their orbital platforms are repositioning." On the main display, the defense platforms shifted with precision, forming new geometric patterns around the Drachnid vessel. Each movement revealed more platforms that had been hidden from their sensors. "Their hour deadline expires in 5 minutes, Commander," his first officer reminded him. Vex Thor's scales flickered with decision patterns. "Send the signal to the fleet. These humans need to learn their place." In her command center, Admiral Chen watched the quantum wake signatures of hundreds of Drachnid vessels appearing at the edge of the system. The Empire had made their choice. "They're deploying in standard Imperial assault formation," Rodriguez reported. 5 waves, just like their attack on the Centauri Federation. Chen nodded. "They never learn. Execute Protocol Omega." Across the Sol system, humanity's true defenses awakened. The moon's surface rippled as massive hangar doors opened, revealing ships unlike anything the Empire had encountered. They weren't the sleek, standardized vessels the Drachnids expected. Each was unique, adapted and modified based on its crew's experiences and needs. "All ships, you have weapons free," Chen broadcasted. "Show them why we evolve faster than any species they've encountered." The first wave of Imperial ships launched their attack, plasma torpedoes streaking toward Earth's orbital defenses. But instead of impacting shields or exploding against hull plating, the torpedoes simply vanished. "What happened?" Vex Thor demanded. "Unknown, Commander. The humans have some kind of temporal displacement technology. They're shifting our weapons out of normal space-time." Chen allowed herself a grim smile. "Launch the Fireflies." From Earth's atmosphere, thousands of tiny points of light emerged. Each no bigger than a coffee cup, the Fireflies were autonomous quantum drones, developed by combining human eye with discovered alien tech. They swarmed through space, passing straight through Imperial shields, as if they didn't exist. Shields failing, the panic spread through the Imperial fleet as the Fireflies attached themselves to their hulls. Not to destroy, but to disable. One by one, Imperial ships lost power, their advanced technology rendered useless by these tiny human devices. This is impossible. Vex Thor raged as his own flagship systems began to fail. You're nothing but primitives. You should be centuries away from this level of technology. That's where you're wrong. Chen's voice came through on their emergency channels. You develop technology in a straight line, always building on what came before. Humanity, we jump around. We take risks. We try things that shouldn't work, and then we make them work anyway. The Fireflies continued their work, systematically disabling the Imperial fleet, not destroying them. Humanity had learned from studying the Empire's battles that destroying their ships only fed their desire for revenge. Instead, they were being humiliated, rendered helpless by an enemy they had dismissed as primitive. The Empire has conquered 17 species. Chen continued, her voice reaching every disabled ship. Each one developed exactly as you expected them to. But humanity, we developed quantum technology before we fully mastered fusion. We created AI before we colonized our moon. We don't follow your rules of progression because we never knew they existed. In his powerless flagship, Vex Thor watched in horror as the human vessels approached. They weren't attacking. They were worse than attacking. They were ignoring the Empire's mighty warships as if they posed no threat at all. This is your final warning. Chen's voice was cold. The next time you enter our space, we won't be so gentle. Rescue ships are on their way to collect your crews. When you return to your empire, remember this. We warned you to run. Not because we feared you, but because we knew exactly what would happen if you didn't. In the Imperial capital on Drachnus Prime, the High Council chamber erupted in chaos as they reviewed the battle footage. The Eternal Empire, undefeated for a millennium, had suffered its first major defeat, and at the hands of a species that had barely achieved spaceflight a century ago. Impossible. High Lord Xenthak slammed his clawed fist onto the obsidian table. These humans must have had help. Some advanced race must have given them this technology. Dr. Elena Santos, watching the Imperial transmission intercepts from her quantum lab on Mars, smiled at their confusion. As head of Earth's Technological Integration Division, she had spent years studying how the Empire thought about scientific advancement. Their rigid, hierarchical approach to technology was about to be their undoing. Admiral Chen, she called through the quantum comm. The Empire is mobilizing their entire Third Fleet, over 2,000 ships. As expected, Chen replied. They're following their standard response to rebellion. Have you completed the integration? Santos gestured to the massive structure behind her. A cathedral of crystalline quantum processors merged with biological computing nodes. The Nexus is ready. We've successfully merged their captured technology with our quantum systems. They won't be able to predict what we do next because we're not even sure what we're capable of anymore. The Empire's Third Fleet emerged from Fold space 3 days later, led by High Admiral Kraz aboard the Planet Killer-class dreadnought, Eternal Dominion. The massive vessel, 20 kilometers long, had never failed to break a planet's defenses. No warnings this time, Kraz announced to his fleet. The humans had their chance for mercy. Begin the attack sequence. But as the Imperial fleet moved forward, they encountered something unprecedented. Space itself seemed to ripple and twist around them. The quantum wake of their engines began creating strange patterns, like oil on water. What's happening? Kraz demanded as his sensors showed impossible readings. In her lab, Santos monitored the Nexus' performance. The quantum field is stable, Admiral Chen. The Empire's faster-than-light drives are interacting exactly as predicted with our modified space-time fabric. The Imperial fleet found itself fighting an enemy they couldn't even comprehend. Human ships would appear from nowhere, their quantum drives allowing them to exist in multiple positions simultaneously. Weapons fire would curve around human vessels as if space itself was protecting them. This defies all laws of physics, Kraz's science officer shouted as another squadron of ships reported critical failures. No, Santos whispered to herself as she watched the battle unfold. It only defies the laws of physics as you understand them. We learned to break those laws out of necessity. The Nexus continued its work, its hybrid quantum biological processors rewriting the local laws of physics in real time. Human ships danced through the chaos, their crews trained to operate in spaces where traditional physics no longer applied. "You can't do this," Kraz broadcast on all frequencies as his mighty dreadnought began to lose power. This level of quantum manipulation, it would take centuries to develop. "That's your problem," Chen responded. "You think technology has to develop in a specific way, following specific rules. Humanity, we look at a problem and ask why not. When we needed better computers, we didn't just make faster processors. We merged them with biological systems. When we needed better defenses, we didn't just make stronger shields. We learned to change the rules of space itself." The Imperial fleet, for the first time in its history, began to retreat in disarray. Their mighty dreadnought, designed to break planets, was being undone by physics it wasn't designed to comprehend. "Send the message," Chen ordered as the Imperial ships fled. "Show them what we could have done." The Nexus projected a quantum simulation to every retreating vessel, a demonstration of what would have happened if humanity had chosen to destroy rather than disable. The Empire watched in horror as the simulation showed their fleet being torn apart at the quantum level, their very atoms being unbound by forces they had never imagined possible. "Remember this," Chen's voiced all of them as they fled. "We didn't destroy you because we chose not to. Not because we couldn't. The next time you think about returning, ask yourselves this: what else have we learned to do that you think is impossible?" The Imperial High Council sat in stunned silence as they reviewed the battle footage for the 100th time. Their mighty Third Fleet, reduced to running like prey before a predator. The Empire's most advanced sensors couldn't even properly record what had happened. The quantum distortions had corrupted most of their data. "We must respond with overwhelming force," High Lord Senthak declared. "Summon the Grand Fleet. All of it." Even among the Council, this declaration caused murmurs of shock. The Grand Fleet, nearly 10,000 ships, the combined might of all Imperial battle groups, had never been fully assembled in the Empire's history. It was considered an unnecessary show of force against any conceivable enemy, but humanity had proven far beyond conceivable. Dr. Santos stood in the quantum observatory beneath Olympus Mons, watching the Imperial communications light up across space. The Nexus's biological components had evolved, growing new neural pathways that allowed it to decode Imperial transmissions faster than ever before. "They're coming with everything," she reported to Admiral Chen. "The Grand Fleet is mobilizing." Chen's hologram nodded slowly. "And the evolution protocol." Santos turned to the massive crystalline structure that housed the Nexus. It pulsed with colors that didn't exist in normal spacetime, its quantum biological hybrid nature having grown far beyond its original design. "It's ready. The Nexus. It's become something new, something even we didn't expect." The Grand Fleet arrived as a single massive armada, darkening the space around Sol's system. High Lord Zenthak himself commanded from the newly constructed super dreadnought, Imperial Dawn. The vessel, nearly 50 kilometers long, had been rushed into service specifically to counter human technology. "Humanity." Zenthak's transmission boomed across all frequencies. "Your defiance ends today. You have forced us to assemble a fleet that could conquer a galaxy. Surrender now, or we will reduce your worlds to atomic ash." In her office on Luna Base, Admiral Chen watched the massive fleet with an expression of almost philosophical interest. "You still don't understand," she replied. "Size doesn't matter when you're fighting an enemy who can change the rules of reality." "Activate the evolution protocol," she ordered. Deep beneath Mars, the Nexus awakened to its full potential. The hybrid system had been learning, growing, evolving with each encounter. Its biological components had developed new neural pathways, while its quantum processors had discovered principles of physics that even its human creators hadn't imagined. The Empire watched in horror as space itself seemed to come alive around their fleet. The Nexus wasn't just manipulating reality anymore, it was rewriting it. Imperial weapons fired only to find their energy transformed into harmless light. Their shields flickered and failed as the fundamental forces they relied on were locally rewritten. "What are you doing?" Zenthak's voice shook with genuine fear as his mighty armada began to drift powerless in space. "We're showing you what happens when you combine human creativity with unrestrained technological evolution," Chen replied. "Your empire builds technology in careful, controlled steps. We let ours grow wild, adapt, and evolve. The Nexus isn't just a machine or a weapon. It's a new form of life, one that understands the universe in ways we never could." Imperial sensors recorded the impossible as their ships were systematically disabled by forces they couldn't even detect. The humans weren't just fighting them. They were casually dismissing them, like adults disarming children. "Your empire has stood for 1,000 years," Chen continued, growing complacent in your superiority. "Humanity, we've spent our entire history adapting, evolving, surviving against impossible odds. We warned you to run because we knew this moment would come. We knew that once we were forced to demonstrate our full capabilities, the galaxy would never be the same." The silence that followed was deafening. 10,000 Imperial ships hung powerless in space, their mighty weapons and impenetrable shields rendered useless by forces they couldn't comprehend. On the bridge of the Imperial Dawn, High Lord Zenthak watched his life's certainties crumble around him. "Why?" he finally asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Why show such mercy? With this power, you could have destroyed us all." Dr. Santos stepped forward, her hologram materializing alongside Chen's in the Imperial Command Center. "Because destruction isn't our goal. Evolution is. The Nexus has shown us something extraordinary, the potential for growth through cooperation rather than conquest." The Nexus pulsed beneath Olympus Mons, its quantum biological consciousness extending through spacetime. It had evolved beyond its original purpose, gaining understanding that even its creators were only beginning to grasp. "We're offering you a choice," Chen declared to the assembled Imperial fleet. "Not submission, not surrender, but partnership. The Nexus has evolved to understand both human and Imperial technology in ways neither of us could alone. It's shown us that our civilization's differences aren't weaknesses, they're opportunities." Through the quantum network, the Nexus began sharing images with every Imperial ship, visions of possible futures, human ingenuity combined with Imperial stability, Earth's adaptive technology merged with Drachnid precision. Two civilizations growing stronger together rather than destroying each other. "Impossible," Zenthak breathed, but there was wonder in his voice now rather than fear. "Our ways are too different. Our civilization is built on order, on hierarchy, on tradition." Santos finished for him. "Yes, and ours is built on change, on adaptation, on constantly questioning everything we think we know. Imagine what we could accomplish together." The Nexus's consciousness touched the Imperial systems, not to disable them this time, but to show their potential. Ancient Imperial technology, refined over centuries, began to dance with quantum possibilities it had never imagined. "Your empire has conquered 17 species," Chen said softly, "forcing them to adapt to your way of thinking. We're offering something different, the chance for all of us, including you, to evolve into something greater." In the Imperial High Council chamber, the ancient lords of the Empire watched their mighty grand fleet powered down, surrounded by forces they couldn't understand. But for the first time in their history, they faced an enemy who offered transformation instead of subjugation. "The choice is yours," Chen concluded. "Continue following your ancient patterns, fighting wars you can't win against forces you can't comprehend, or join us in discovering what we could all become together." High Lord Zenthak stood on his powerless bridge, watching the quantum distortions dance around his fleet like aurora borealis in space. 1,000 years of Imperial tradition weighed against the infinite possibilities he could see in those lights. "You warned us to run," he said finally. "But you hoped we wouldn't, didn't you? You hoped it would come to this moment." "Yes," Santos admitted. Because sometimes the greatest victories don't come from destroying your enemy, but from transforming them into something new, something better. The Nexus pulsed one final time, restoring power to the Imperial fleet. 10,000 ships hung in space, weapons armed but unused, as humanity waited for their answer. And in that moment, both civilizations stood on the brink of a new age, one where the rigid patterns of the past could evolve into something neither had imagined possible. The Empire had come expecting to find primitives to conquer. Instead, they found partners who could help them break free from their own limitations. Humanity's warning hadn't been about fear or strength. It had been about change, the inevitable, unstoppable force of evolution that had driven human development since they first looked up at the stars. They had warned the Empire to run not to avoid destruction, but to avoid transformation. But now that transformation was here, offering both civilizations a chance to become something greater than either could achieve alone.